All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another WNBA video. A bit of a sad one, a bit of a sort of, I guess we'll call it a dramatic one, but not so dramatic for people who were sort of in the know. Caitlin Clark will miss the remainder of the WNBA season. I guess it's the 2025 WNBA season with that quad injury, I guess would be that leg injury, that upper leg injury, that thigh injury. Um, yeah, and she released this statement. I'm going to read it to you. If you want to read it right now, you can. But if you don't want to, I'll read it to you in a second. But if you like what I say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment it down below. And if you like the vibes, consider subscribing. We're going to talk about this, what it means for the Indiana Fever a little bit for the remainder of the season. And I kind of want to take a look back at Caitlin Clark and what was a sophomore slump for her, and sort of the discourse around um, what she's meant to the league, what she means to the league, and how sort of teams were defending her, and how other players have caught up in popularity a little bit, and sort of dissect it a little bit, and not just talk about her injury, but talk about what it means for again the team and the WNBA. She released this statement. Um, would be on the 4th. You guys are getting this video on Sunday, I think. So yeah, so it's a little late, but I am recording this in recent time, but you guys will get it later. So let me read this to you guys. Again, this released on September 4th. Caitlin Clark on Instagram said in a caption, I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day the goal, with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed it isn't making a big enough disappoint disappointed isn't making a big enough word to describe how I'm feeling. I wanted to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been increasingly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way the fans continue to show up for me, for the Fever, brought me so much joy and important perspective. I am so proud of what this team has only gotten stronger through adversity this year. Now it is time to close out the season and claim our spot in the playoffs. Heart emoji at the end. Yeah, I think this was needed. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of, I think, for the people in the know, everybody knew sort of she wasn't going to come back. There wasn't enough need for her to come back. The Fever aren't sitting too high in the WNBA standings. They haven't even clinched the playoff spot yet, and they're still fighting to stay in the playoffs. And to be a low seed, to have to go against anybody like the Lynx, the Aces, the Dream, there really isn't any need for Caitlin to come back and play that high level basketball that quickly after being injured, then re aggravating it again, and then having a minor setback with a non contact injury during this rehab process, um, which was unrelated to the injury she was already trying to come back from. There just wasn't any need to do that to push her out there and make her play high level basketball. This was needed. It came so late in the process, I think, because the WNBA and the Fever and even Caitlin didn't want to tank the rest of the WNBA's remaining schedule with the Fever games on it. And she's a big draw. Whatever you think about Caitlin, she's a big draw. She's one of the biggest draws. She's one of the only players that can sell out an arena, that can make teams move their venue to a bigger arena to accommodate her fans and the Fever fans that come out every game for her. And when I say this, it is literally for her. Paige Beckers doesn't do that. Angel Reese doesn't do that. A 3-time, 4-time MVP doesn't do that in Asia Wilson. Nafisa Collier doesn't do that. Nobody does it like Caitlin. I want to make that very clear. And that's no disrespect to anybody that I listed, but that is the truth. Nobody else does it like Caitlin for whatever reason. You can speculate for what reason. Caitlin Clark is one of the biggest draws in the WNBA, and will continue to be one of the biggest draws. Um, but this needed to be said. Don't let the fans get their hopes up that you're going to come back in these last couple games or even for the playoffs. Let it be what it may. Let the chips fall where they need to fall. And that moves us on to Caitlin Clark this year. Um, she had a really bad sophomore slump, a really bad sophomore slump. Only achieving 13 games this season when she played 40 last year. She got the team into the playoffs last year, which was incredible. Um, this season, 16 points, 5 turnovers a game, uh, 1.5 steals, 8 assists. Free throws were down. 2 pointers were down. 3 pointer was way down. She shot 27%. Her field goal was down to 36. Her attempts were the same. Her field goals were the same. Her minutes were down a little bit to 31 from 35 last year. And I think this was a very uncharacteristical season for her. And I say this in the sense of, I'm gonna quote, not quote, but I'm gonna paraphrase a lot from her interview she did with Sue Bird on Bird's Eye View, where it was a very frustrating season for her, in her own words. The inconsistency with the minutes, the being able to gel with the team, the minutes restriction she was on, didn't help. And as she voiced in her quote that you can see in front of you, it was a very frustrating process for her, and it still is a frustrating process for her because this is the first time she's really been injured and not been able to play basketball and having to rehab. And rehab, for anybody who's never done rehab or known somebody who's done rehab or has followed along with players that have had to do rehab multiple times, is an increasingly frustrating process. And especially when it's a muscle injury or like a tendon injury and it's not something you can see actually getting better. It's a lot of repetitive movements. It's a lot of 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. Oh, we need to repeat this. This isn't going the same way. We need to mend this part of the body first before we move on to this part. And it's in the increasingly frustrating process of literally, I'm going to use that example, doing the stair climber every day for a month, or we'll say you'll take one day off to actually recover. So every day, we'll say you do it for a week, you miss Saturday or Sunday to recover, and that's back on the stair climber for a month. Incessant, annoying process. And then you move on to the next step, which would probably be just like um actual weight, like more weight on that injury, which is um weighted going up the stair climber, we'll say. Just as an example, it is an increasingly frustrating process, and for somebody who's never done it in Caitlin Clark, I can see how frustrating it would be. And that being said, going from doing that to playing to re-injuring yourself to having to start all over from ground zero is frustrating, and it shows in the numbers. And I'm not going to excuse a lot of these numbers because of her injury. I think, quite frankly, at times the percentages show it. The WNBA sort of figured her out. When you're a rookie, nobody really knows what you can do. Nobody's really prepared for what you can do on this level. Your second year is where you start to struggle. It happens in the NBA, happens in the WNBA. You start to struggle. The percentages say it. The 3 pointers she was throwing up sometimes, even for her, were questionable. They were bad at times. She needs to work on her shot diet. Her shot diet was absolutely atrocious this year. Absolutely atrocious. Um, her floater, her layups were bad. Her turnovers have always been bad, and I think she has even said it. Um, she tries to make like this flashy pass, tries to get the fast break started maybe a little bit too early, throws the pass a little too hot. She needs to work on that. And those are things that, as much as I like Caitlin Clark, I'm gonna hold her feet to the fire in that stance, in that circumstance, is that her shot diet needs to be better in her 3 point attempts, her 2 point attempts, her layups, her assists to turnover ratio, 5 for every 8 assists you get, is not good. You need to get that down to like 3. It needs to get down to 3 next year. That is a must. That is a must. Um, and a lot of the turnovers are just fast break turnovers where she gets the rebound, or somebody hands her the rebound, and she sees somebody down the floor and she throws it and it goes out of bounds just to the other baseline. She needs to work on that. And I think her aggressiveness needs to be turned down a little bit, in the sense of she needs to take a moment, take a second. If Caitlin could go from 8 assists to 10 assists like that and be a double double machine. And I think that would be so much more impressive than her jumping up back up to 19 or 20 points a game. I think her hovering around 18 points a game, 10 assists would be would be a godsend, would be amazing for her. Um, this year, again, the defense on her was different. She struggled. It was something she voiced again in that podcast she did with Sue Bird. Is like she didn't get enough time out there to adjust to the defense teams were playing on her because she was injured and because really didn't have the same team around her. The Fever got absolutely destroyed by injuries in the latter half of the season, and the roster construction was just so different from um, where it was in the beginning of the season. And that also plays a part in Caitlin Clark being a point guard is not knowing where people want the ball, how they want the ball, where they want the ball. Is this person cutting? Is this person going to stand in the corner? That takes time. That takes reps with the team, and she just didn't have those reps. Um, I'm gonna say, as a Caitlin Clark fan, this was a disappointing season for her. Not just personally, but the team was bad. Um, I think being age 23, will be 24 at the start of next year. I think this next year is a big year for her. As I alluded to in the intro, um, other people catching up to Caitlin in the sense of Paige Beckers has people have turned away from Caitlin Clark, and not necessarily diehard fans, but casual fans have been like, well, you look at what Paige Beckers has done. Paige Beckers looks like the next big thing, and the league will pass you by like that. And I don't think they're going to pass Caitlin Clark by like that. I'm just using it as a paraphrasing, but I think Caitlin has to be very intentional with her next improvements because Dallas isn't going to be bad forever. This Indiana Fever team, the goal this year was to make the playoffs, was to be a finals contender, and they've managed to do one part of that, but the other half has been basically not in the picture for the last 2 months. Um, I think I think Caitlin has the ability, and the team has the ability to be. They're properly managed. They have a good coach. They have a great coach. Caitlin just needs to improve and needs to stay healthy. Um, I think Paige being right on her bumper, popularity wise, in the sense of like in the cultural zeitgeist, I think just regular fans like Caitlin more, but it, basketball is a what have you done for me recently sport. And when you don't play and somebody else comes in and takes your spot, essentially, you're not going to win that fight. Um, I think I think a lot in this video. I'm so sorry. I need to find more adjectives for that or better words for that. Um, Caitlin is gonna have the advantage in almost every situation she's in because she went to a great franchise that's gonna manage the team well. It's gonna put a competitive team around her. Even when she doesn't play, this team has been slightly more competitive than you think it would be, but they're not able to take that next jump without Caitlin. Caitlin is the engine that makes this team go, and this team needs to be competitive next year. And I'll talk about that more once their season officially ends. But man, oh man, it was a bad year, and this was a lost season for sure. All things considered. Looking at her small game sample sizes here, how many games she played? 13, right? Looking at her 13 games played this season, um, looking for her best game here through her game logs. Um, yeah, okay, so there's a 27-point game here, 11 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 turnovers against Atlanta on I guess, a baseball series where they played Atlanta at home and then they played him in Atlanta. They did not win this game with Caitlin Clark at 27, but shot 54, 45 from three, 54 from field goal. Pretty decent game. She had a triple double in Chicago. Um, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 blocks, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. this is just the sample size of what Caitlin Clark can do. And I think games like the Chicago game need to be more in her Rolodex of games, not the 10 rebounds. I'm not asking for the 10 rebounds. I'm asking for 20 points, 10 assists, 18 points, 10 assists. I think that's the ballpark she needs to get around, get her turnovers around 3, like I said. And I think the most positive thing about this Fever season was that Aaliyah Boston took a step. And Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark look like a great 1-2. And the team that's put around them is going to be very interesting next year. Kelsey Mitchell taking another step as well is a great sign. And this team overall being competitive is a great sign for this team. Again, Caitlin is the deciding factor, not just for this team, but for the landscape of the WNBA in the sense of a competitive atmosphere. You look at the WNBA this year, if I go look at the standings, I had the Fever projected really high in the preseason that I did. Um, it's going to be rough going if for the next 2 years it's going to be the Lynx, the Aces, the Dream, the Mercury, the Liberty. You're going to have to fall somewhere after that. And that puts you in the same situation you're in now, fighting with Golden State, who just clinched the other night. Seattle, the Fever, the Fever is the team I'm talking about. The Sparks, the Chicago Sky if they get better, the Wings if they get better, the Washington Mystics if they get better. You're going to have to start the season well next year. You're going to have to really put your foot on the gas and show everybody next year that you belong in this other tier with the Lynx, with the Aces, with the Dream, with the Mercury, um, and make that next step. Um, there was something else I had on the tip of my tongue and I just forgot it. But that's really all I wanted to say. Um, Disappointing season for Caitlin Clark. I'm not going to make any excuses for her this year. She had a bad year, and she needs to improve. She needs to take that next step and be literally in MVP conversations next year. I'm not asking her to win it, but she needs to put herself in those conversations, not just for her name, but for her actual play. Because people in fairness have questioned her play, have started to question her play, and there's no defense for it. The Fever did win the Commissioner's Cup this year, which is another good sign for them, but we will see what happens next year. And again, we'll talk about the winners and losers of the WNBA season when the Fever clinch or when they don't clinch a playoff berth. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my other WNBA playlist. I'll leave some of the. I guess do I have any links to leave down below? I don't think so. If you want to check out the quote, it's right in front of you. Um, and yeah, again, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.